We're going to be doing an example from calculus. It's from the book Exercises for I, number 1D. So number 1 just says find the first derivative for each function. And if we look at function d, like 1D, it looks like y equals negative 2, that's negative, over the square root of 1 minus 3x squared. Okay, you could consider this a quotient. Like it's clearly a fraction and the x is in the denominator, which is the important part when we're dealing with a quotient situation. So you can use the quotient rule. In this example, I would typically prefer to use the chain rule. So like I will rewrite this so that it doesn't look like a quotient. You can always do that, but especially I do that when there's no x in the numerator. So I would rewrite this as negative 2 times 1 minus 3x squared to the power negative 1/2. The negative because I've brought it up from the denominator, and the 1/2 because that's the exponent version of a square root. So now that I see it like this, clearly I will need to use the chain rule to take the derivative because I have this function inside of this like larger outer composite function. I will almost always be using Leibniz notation to try to keep things super clear about what we're taking the derivative with respect to when I do the chain rule. So the inside function I'm calling u, and it's 3x squared, which means I could consider my outside function, it's still y, but now it's negative 2, and instead of using that expression, I'm calling it u, because I renamed it. Like I decided u was called this, which means that I can rewrite y as this other function. We need to take the derivative. It's du with respect to dx. So it's the derivative of u with respect to this letter here, x. So then it's going to be negative 6x. Next, I need to take the derivative of y, but with respect to u. It's very important that like now I'm taking the derivative with respect to a different variable. It's not the same as dy dx. So dy du, I multiply the negative 2 by negative 1/2, so I'll just get 1. I'll go ahead and write it down. I have u, and then it is to the power negative 3/2. This is what dy du is, but because I intend to put it back together, I'd like it only to be written in terms of x. So this will be the quantity 1 minus 3x squared to the power negative 3/2. And the chain rule is dy dx is the same as dy du. Notice it's a different variable that I'm taking the derivative with respect to, du dx. So I need to simply multiply these together. So to color code this, the dy du is what I did in green, and du dx is what I've done in purple. It doesn't really matter what order you multiply them together. Honestly, it's going to be a little bit easier if you put this one first, but let's just go as I've got it written down right now. So this is 1 minus 3x squared to the power of negative 3/2 multiplied by negative 6x. And I'll rewrite this so it looks a little bit nicer. I am going to get rid of that negative exponent by putting that section back in the denominator, and I'm also going to write it with a root in it. So the negative 6x stays on top. This is now the square roots of 1 minus 3x squared cubed. You should bring this together, like put the negative 6 in the front. It's a little strange to put a times negative at the end of something, but you do not have to put that back in the denominator. You could leave it as negative 6x brackets 1 minus 3x squared, close bracket to the power negative 3/2. So this is what I will have as my final answer here.